This is the age of the multi-dimensional source.
Hello there, it's Kelly here from Divine Alchemy Healing, and today I'm delighted and honoured to introduce Nick Salzman to you, which many people will probably already know of Nick. His website is Pendulum Apometrics, and we'll put that up across the screen. But welcome, Nick. Thank you for giving us your time. And how are you today?
You know, I'm doing great. Today's a great day to have this interview. I'm excited to talk with you all and hopefully give you guys some new tools to put in your toolbox and guide you through life and maybe find a little bit more balance and happiness.
Perfect. So do you want to tell us how you started with pendulums, or what led you to pendulums in the first place?
I appreciate it. I get this question a lot, and it's always a lot of fun just because hearing everybody else's individual experiences and how they stumble into this stuff, right? When you look back on it, it doesn't ever seem like an accident. But the way it started for me, when I was younger, I was kind of the type of person that all the houses that I ever lived in had like paranormal kind of activity going on. So there was always like spiritual activity going on around me, and I didn't really know what to think about it other than that there was something going on and I couldn't quite put my thumb on what it was. So that kind of came and went a little bit, growing up. And then by the time I got to be about 25, 26, I started noticing, well, I'm 40 now, so about 15 years ago, I started noticing I'd always hear this tap or this pop. It always kind of sounded like the house is settling, but it always would seem to happen when I was the only one awake, or maybe when I was the only one at home. And then the creaks, the pops, the taps, it started happening on things that shouldn't creak, pop, or tap, like on the top of a table or on the top of a counter or right next to your head on the wall. And so this was something I started taking note of. And I had a teacher at the time, he was kind of like a meditation teacher. And I was asking him, I said, hey, I'm hearing this. Do you know anything about this? And he was a really funny guy. He basically just kind of laughed and he said, no, I don't have any experience with that, but be careful who you tell because people are going to think you're crazy if you tell them you start hearing stuff, right? So he definitely found a lot of humor in it, as did I. We both appreciate the irony of it. So this sound, after I started noticing it, I started noticing it a little bit more, to the point where I'd wake up in the middle of the night, it's 3 a.m, can't go back to sleep. I do what a lot of people do. I grab my phone and I start scrolling through the internet, start looking at things to buy on Amazon, whatever. And then all of a sudden, from the other side of the house, I'd hear that it'd start coming from one end of the house until finally pop on the wall next to me. Every single time I picked up my phone, it was next to me within a minute. So I started noticing this. And so one time I woke up and I didn't go for my phone. And I acted like I was asleep, even though I was wide awake. I acted like I was asleep. I didn't grab my phone and it wouldn't happen. But as soon as I grabbed my phone and turned it on, tick, 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 pop. Every time. So I started hearing the same sound walking by cars. I'd hear a pop on a car. I'd hear the same sound walking by brick and concrete walls, pop on a brick and concrete wall. And these pops, it's not like it's really loud, but it's loud enough that you can hear it.
Yeah.
Kind of like how you'd hear something like in the other room, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not really loud, but you can clearly hear it.
Yeah.
So very much like that. So one night I was out having dinner with my wife, and there was a little bookstore that was right next to the place. And I was looking for a new book. I had just finished up one that I was reading. I was really curious about finding out what happened after death and before we were born. That little chunk of area of time or whatever, and I was really interested in that. So I was always trying to find information on that topic. So I went into the library, and I'm walking up and down the aisles, and I don't see nothing. And nothing's catching my eye. I don't see anything. As I start to walk away and give up, I hear this pop, and it was loud. It was like someone hit a bookshelf with a marble. It was very loud. And I turn and I look, and there's this one gray book that's surrounded by all these dark books, right? And I pull the gray book out, and it says, People That Don't Know That They're Dead by Gary Leon Hill. And so I flip it open to the first page, and I start reading about the author, the little author biography. And I see that this fellow is from Eugene, Oregon. I'm also from Oregon.
Right.
His accomplice that he's working with, his associate that's in this, is from Nebraska. My first teacher is from Nebraska. So I didn't read anything else in it. I grabbed the book, I purchased it, and I took it home.
Yeah.
And so in that book, it gave me an introduction on how to identify spiritual presences with a pendulum. And so fast forward a little bit quicker, I ended up buying this rose quartz pendulum. You know, there's a lot of little metaphysical stores that have the little crystal gem pendulums, right? And so I got a rose quartz one, which is pink.
Yeah.
Now I don't own anything pink, and I'm not really that kind of person. Don't have anything super bright, anything like that in my wardrobe. But anyways, I saw this and I was guided towards it and I grabbed it. I started working with this and I was told, you know, put it in your pocket or keep it under your pillow, and it'll start getting to know your energy or whatever it is, right? I didn't know anything about anything. And I remember within a week, I had this dream. And this dream, I was in the presence of a very radiant woman. She was beautiful, but not like I was there to hook up or anything like that.
Sure.
It was like you got sent to the principal's office and she happens to be extremely radiant. So as I'm talking to this person, she starts telling me that her name is Archangel Ariel and that she's here to help me perfect my faith. And so I didn't know anything about angels. I didn't know anything about demons. I didn't know anything about any of that. Mm-hmm. And I woke up and I Googled Archangel Ariel, and then I started noticing all the different traits of her presence in my life. And so as I started, which people that are like animal lovers or animals kind of come to them, and people always tell you, you know, it's so weird that she lets you pet her because no one is allowed to pet her. And, you know, all this kind of stuff. If you hear that all the time, there's a good chance she's working with you. So learning about her, I started looking through other stuff. I started learning about pendulum work, and I started learning a lot about the breath and how to incorporate the breath in the work that I'm doing. And so this archangel is really, that's just a name. But who she is, what she is found all around the world. All around the world, from ancient Egypt, being Sekhmet,
right,
to Tibet, where she's Tara,
yeah,
to some of the Chinese culture and Japanese culture, Kuan Yin.
Yeah.
I believe she's also depicted, I read about her in this Hawaiian book, literally meaning the Holy Mother. Her name is Hui Hui. In the Catholic religion, she's also depicted as Mary. And so what she is, she's a divine feminine presence that is directly helpful when it comes to alchemy of the soul, which I know that this channel talks a lot about alchemy, and this is exactly where we're going with it. And so when I started using that pendulum, this really loud sound that I would hear, I realized was guidance. Right. It wasn't just something that was meant to scare me. Now it was powerful and loud enough that it got my attention.
Yeah.
And it was something that I don't think that everybody hears. Because I remember one night I was sitting watching a movie with my wife and I heard pop. It was like a loud pop on the ceiling, enough to make me jump. It startled me. And I look at my wife and I go, oh my God, you hear that? She goes, hear what? Oh, okay. Maybe not everybody hears this stuff. So what I've noticed though, using the pendulum to decipher spiritual presences, depending on our intention, if we locate things that we don't want to deal with and we instantly cast them out or push them out, and we just, we don't want to hear, so we call on the angels to clear them out, like all this stuff, right? That will give you a little bit of understanding. And the things that are trying to be deceitful, it's because a lot of times they're more afraid of being turned away rather than being punished. And so sometimes if they're not honest with us, and so they'll act like they're like a spirit guide, or they'll act like a family member, and then the conversation kind of goes sideways with it, And so when we know how to help and we know how to heal, and to the best of our knowledge, we kind of know what we're dealing with, either way, it helps us find our place within this giant labyrinth of connections between us and all different realities, right? Yeah. But where we are is somehow in the center of it. And what we can do with ourselves and the pendulum is help bring healing and facilitate not only crossing over of spirits, but also the same kind of effort can be used in directing healing towards another. And so this is hopefully what we get a chance to talk about a little bit more getting into this.
Yeah.
So I know I can easily get going from one topic to another. I feel like we're about to get there. Do you have any questions about it?
Well, I mean, really interesting what you were saying about your childhood and hearing those noises, because I had a very similar thing. I went on a slightly different journey because it was more, initially for me, I was more aware of entities than I was of guides. And so I've gone through a similar process, but then came to guides through entity interaction, which if they hadn't have messed about, and sort of we had quite a lot living in a house at one time, and we ended up having a spiritualist church come out to help. We didn't know what we were doing. I just could tell there was energy, and then we were seeing evidence. And people say to us, oh my God, that must have been a terrifying experience. And it was at the time, but actually what it did was it put both me and my husband at the time on the spiritual path, which led us, I work with Archangel Metatron a lot, and originally Archangel Michael was probably one of the first ones I worked with. So there's some real similarities in how we're thinking in terms of, I love that you said, not all entity, bless you, interaction is, it's not always about them trying to do something to you. Sometimes it's just, some frustration. Yes, they might lie to you, or, they might try and get your attention in different ways, which might feel to us sort of scary, because they're trying to make you aware that they're there, aren't they?
Yes.
So yeah, that wasn't really a question, but it was certainly an agreement. And I felt when you were talking about Archangel Azrael, I could just feel this wonderful sort of energy coming off you, but I was also feeling it as you were speaking about her, and it just felt like a real energy was shift, or not connection between us was sort of happening through your talking about Archangel Azrael. So I guess if I led you to a question is, can anyone connect to her? What would you suggest they do if they want to connect with Archangel Azrael?
Azrael is something that if you want to connect with Azrael, it's fine. Who I was picking up on is Archangel Ariel. And so
yes.
So it's all right. And so the way I see it, from my understanding of dealing with these archangels, right, and the way you're dealing with the Holy Mother is because you're never going to see her face.
Yeah.
She doesn't show her face. If you listen to other ancient texts, they always talk about the faceless woman. She has, like when I saw her, she looked blonde to me, but I couldn't tell you what she looked like. But I do remember that she was a blonde woman, and she had a radiant glow to her. But anybody can get in touch with this woman.
Yeah.
Some people that have little ties to ancient Egypt, there's a book called In the Belly of the Goddess, and what this is, it's all about transformation. And so what it basically says is all of my desires, everything that is holding me back from being in a higher place spiritually and moving along my path in a greater way, we basically give this to Sekhmet to digest in their belly. This is their approach with it. But the Holy Mother is the same thing when it comes to helping dissolve our ego and help us heal emotionally. Have you ever heard of Kali?
Kali Ma?
Yeah, so Kali is the same thing.
Yeah.
But with Kali, a lot of people will see her, right, like standing over, I think it's Shiva, with his head chopped off or whatever, right? So they see it right away and like, what is this? But they don't understand that Shiva represents the ego in that. And so what it comes down to is her assistance in helping kill the ego, which keeps us back.
Yeah.
And so it's a really interesting process, because when I started getting into more alchemy, I started getting into more of Kabbalah, and I started listening to more about the tree of knowledge. And the way that I learned about this is because when I would help non-human spirits that I would just basically call the jinn, they got a lot of different names. I would just say that they're a type of elemental spirit, and they're more similar to angels than not. Okay. And what I found is, we don't send them to the light. If we try to send them to the light and they ain't gonna go, it doesn't work like that. But there is a place that they can go. You can call it their home dimension. But what I found is there's this place that was called Doth. And this is before I got into Kabbalah or knew anything about it. I heard about Doth. And I started looking into it, and I started realizing that the type of pendulum that I was using that was healing the jinn emitted a blue frequency. When you hold the tree of life over the physical body, Doth is over the throat, right? Which is also a blue chakra. So what Doth is the doorway from the lower physical realms to the higher spiritual realms, this part being the abyss. And so what Doth actually is also not only a doorway to knowledge, but also a bridge over the abyss. And so we can take these and help get angelic assistance with the Divine Holy Mother, or some people call on Raphael or Michael, or whichever one works with you.
Yeah, whatever you're drawn to, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but they're the ones that can go where we can't go. But where we play a part in this, see, they have a higher, when I'm talking about the jinn, I'm talking about demons, I'm talking about elementals. They have an upper hand on us spiritually. So when we go to our dream state, this is where we have a lot of interactions that they can hold a ton of influence over. And they can also give us anxiety and depression and different weird sensations like pain in the head, elevated heart rate when they're around. So they're definitely uncomfortable. But what I've also found is that when I used the pendulum and I started dowsing these emotional charts, because at first I was saying, what's in me that's attracting them? Why do they keep coming to me? Is it just because I'm helpful? But I started noticing that there were similar characteristics between something inside of me and something within them. And when I started learning what that was, this is what also was holding me back from operating at a higher state. And so I would say easily 3/4 or more of the people that I deal with, when they have one of these jinn in their life, the underlying thing that they have in common with them is like fear of abandonment and fear of just being left and forsaken and forgotten. And, I mean, this is something that, like, you got to understand when you make communication with these. Some of them have been around hundreds or thousands of years without ever talking to people. Walking by people and people don't even know that they're there. Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're like, hey, how you doing? They go, act real animalistic, because what makes things really special is they can also be a really good teacher. And I don't mean asking them for knowledge so we can learn things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying stick to business, do the healing, do what needs to be done. But they can be a teacher of what's inside of us that's holding us back. You know what I mean? And so doing this work, once again, when we open our awareness to just this understanding that there is a spiritual presence around us that requires us to be knowledgeable of human and non-human spirits, and we understand how to handle both of them safely, we can help dissolve that fear. And if we dissolve that fear and replace it with knowledge, then we start stepping into our true power. Then what do you bring to the table? That's the fun part.
That's really cool, because I think it's a subject that often people do fear. You know, there's tons of YouTube channels that all specialize in paranormal activity, and often you see people, when they do hear something or they get some reaction which they're asking for, you know, they're almost out of the house before, you know, there's no communication. It's just all the fear factor. And, you know, maybe that's what a lot of people have been exposed to, and very similar to you know, when I do any entity clearing, I always feel like there's usually a lesson in it. You know, I found sometimes with alcoholics that they will attract entities, human-bound entities that have been alcoholic in their life, and almost amplify the addiction a little bit, because they're trying to get that bit of hit from the alcohol.
Oh, you bet. They're still thirsty.
Yeah. And it, you know, I've always felt it's quite a cold, dark place down here if you're not in a body. I mean, it's quite a cold, dark place for some people when they are in a body, but, you know, if you haven't got a body and you're not being acknowledged, as you say, you know, if they've had an addiction in the past, they're going to try and get back to that energy, aren't they? And get a little hit out of it. I'm sure it's not quite as nice as it is for someone drinking the actual alcohol, but
I think it's, you know, when they die, this is kind of what they see. They just have tunnel vision. They see their desire and they see what they want. You know what I mean? And so getting around people to try and experience alcohol again, trying to get around people to experience the high of drugs or the feeling of sex. I mean, these are all things that are out there. But what I wanted to talk about, which you reminded me of, is when these things make uncomfortable experiences. Why? Why do they create uncomfortable experiences? Well, they have to be bad if they give us nightmares. Well, they have to be bad if they're throwing stuff. Maybe good and bad is just a matter of perspective. Think of it like this.
Yeah.
If they really knew how to connect with source energy and would take away their pain, would take away the hunger that they have. If they knew how to do this, they wouldn't be interested in what they're able to do with us. But you and me are a spiritual being, but we have a physical body. And so because of that, we have strong emotional energy. And that energy, they have figured out a way to use it as a sustenance for survival. Now, like a mosquito, it goes from one person to another, drinking a little bit of life force, a little bit of blood here and there. Now, I don't want to compare him to a mosquito because I want to be very respectful to him at the same time. But at the same time, would we call that mosquito a demon? Or would we just simply say that's what a mosquito does? That's its way of understanding how to survive. And so with them, it's very different. And so when we can connect and give them that source energy through the breath, this is something better than anything they've ever had, because it's the closest thing to source energy. And a lot of times they feel that they've fallen into the darkness for so long that they can't even be a part of it. You know what I mean? That it's something that's above them. They can't have it, is essentially what it comes down to. And so when I tell people some of the scary things about this is, first of all, think of this. If you had the biggest, scariest, meanest, nastiest demon inside of your house, and it knew that you knew how to help it, how to heal it, and get it back to its family, do you think it would harm you?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It wouldn't.
No, but it would remind you that it's there, and it would make things uncomfortable until you wake up, snap out of your fear, and take care of business, or call someone that you know that'll take care of business for you. That's what. And so anytime that this link is made, them, us, connection with the angels, once this is made, there is some sort of a signature. They know about it, they see about it, and more of them start using this cycle of helping each other get the heck out of this system. And if you have one of these at home, chances are you probably have had your smoke alarms chirp in the middle of the night. This is one thing they usually do. The pops is something that a lot of them will usually do. But when we feel them, we get these little pressures in the side of the head or the top of the head. They'll come and they're strong and they go away just as fast as they came. Elevated heart rate, sometimes a shortness of breath. This is where sleep paralysis comes from.
Right.
And so when we can learn to say, hey, you know what, there's something else going on around us, it's triggering everything inside of us to learn to use those feelers. And so it's been really interesting. What's the biggest danger of this, though? Realistically, having your reality shattered.
Yeah.
That's probably it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in sometimes we have these thoughts in the way that we believe that we're safe. And these interactions will definitely challenge those thoughts and beliefs. And so the work that I do is basically, we have our guardian angels in place. The work that I do goes up and above them and goes right to soul level. And so at this point, they're meant to be guidance, but they're here to help show us the way. But I do believe that it's up to us, if we choose to, do the work with the angels now before we die.
Yeah. And it's really interesting the way, we can extend our compassion and recognize that there is learning in all. Like, my husband, when we had we call it the entity experience, because, it was big for us. There was a lot of activity, and I'd only just moved into this cottage. We weren't married at the time, but it sort of kicked it off in a much bigger way. So we went to the spiritual church, but he was a complete atheist when I met him. And so the first few months, he was like, he thought it was me doing it. And I was like, it's not me. I was working for horses. We lived on a sort of an estate of a very famous drummer from a very famous band. So there was a sort of community within this big estate anyway, and I was the groom working with the horses, and I wasn't there, for
this house that you're talking about, does it have was a ton of stuff inside made of wood?
Yeah.
Okay, so one little thing about doing this work, you can talk your stories and I can see everything you're talking about.
Yeah.
Plus, if there's anything that was in the audience, like you want to talk about what you're experiencing, I could let you know it's here right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting because
if you're feeling this right now, that's it.
Yeah, I could feel something in my heart. And it really was for him, he had to go from zero, no belief in anything, to witnessing for people from the spiritualist church, channeling for 4 hours, clearing all these beings. And I was energy aware. I was a baby within that sort of space, but I could feel different energies. But I felt like it was a real blessing to us, because for him, it put him on a more spiritual path. It connected him. He was he was 20 years older than me when I married him. So he had this thing about him though, where young people just flocked around him because he was musical and he was interesting, and then he was sort of able to, through that extra knowledge, it almost like connected him back to who he truly was. And for me, it just took me off on another journey altogether. But we spent 9 years doing a spiritual path together, which I often think to myself, well, if that hadn't happened, and I'm not saying it was a bit frightening, some of the stuff, but if it hadn't happened, would we have gone on that path together?
That's cool. You said he was a drummer?
The rock star we lived with was a drummer. Go on. Tell me what band it was.
That's cool. My teacher was in a rock band too. He played the guitar.
My husband was he was like their roadie cum gardener helper, and lived right next door to we were attached to the property, but also there was a lot of rock and roll parties that went on, like where there was an awful lot of the sex, drugs and rock and roll thing happening there. So it was sort of ripe for entities sort of hanging around, just seeing what was going on, so it was an interesting time in my life. But it was because I eventually became an entity clearer myself, not that I wanted to at any point. I was still kicking and screaming, no, I want to do the nice things, but as I grew to understand it more, then it became I knew there's always a learning here for whoever it is that's experiencing that. They're going to get a learning out of it, and generally it does wake you up, doesn't it? So
absolutely. And I tell people, there have been a lot of parts that have been uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, I'm someone that very much likes to know how things work. I'm the kind of guy that likes tinkering on things too, taking stuff apart, putting it back together. Like I've always been kind of that way. And so for me, something that started off as I wanted to keep my house clear, because what really kicked this off was my sons started experiencing the same stuff I was experiencing at their age. And so I just remember growing up and kind of being scared of it. And I wanted to keep my house clear, and I wanted to be able to protect my family. And man, the rabbit holes that I've been down since then, it's been man, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's been amazing. And now we get a chance to say, hey, here's all the troubling stuff that I went through. Now we can use all of this to say, hey, here's how we can help you, or here's what you can do to help you and other people around you.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Would you say, like, for me, I feel a lot of people that do sometimes have problems, initially they're not very grounded. Does that sort of resonate with you as something that they often need to do? Even
people on a spiritual journey where they're actively acknowledging wanting to be better, Yeah, being ungrounded is something that I don't think we're really taught how to do that. You know what I mean anymore. And so everyone has their own way of doing it.
Yeah.
And all I could say is, even if you don't believe in anything, take some time to go barefoot and go barefoot out on the ground. Maybe you live like where I live, it's like really cold and rainy, and so you don't really want to go outside right now in this barefoot. But when it changes, do it. So that's something.
Nick, whereabouts are you in the world?
I'm in Oregon, so I'm like on the west coast of the United States, just above California and south of Washington.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was just trying to work out the time differences, and I sort of thought you were in America, but I wasn't quite sure. So yeah, so it's rainy and cold there, is it?
Yeah, we live in a place called the Willamette Valley. I live in a city called Hillsboro, which is about a half hour west of Portland, and we get a ton of rainfall here. But this part of Oregon looks very different from the rest of Oregon because we're very green, we're very lush, and we have big, beautiful trees.
Wow, lovely. And of course, they're very helpful for grounding, aren't they?
They are. They are. Trees are great for grounding. Going on hikes is great, but I even tell people, in the beginning of it all, if you don't have time to go get barefoot and you don't have time to go and get fresh air just because you're stacked with your schedule, or maybe you live in an area that doesn't have that, find a way to express gratitude, because expressing gratitude helps keep us in that moment, which is grounding. And so for me, the way it started off is I would always wake up early, and I got to the point where I wake up early and I read and I drink a cup of coffee. I started going outside with this hot cup of coffee and that cold air that you can see your breath, and I'm like, and I was like, oh, for some reason, I love it. And I love that cold air and that hot cup of coffee, and I would just say, you know what? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to have this cup of coffee. Thank you for allowing this body to enjoy this. Thank you for just this moment. Thank you. I'm grateful for everything right now. That part, that's grounding. That will get you grounded real quick and help center us back into the moment. And so I always tell people that gratitude is the best thing that we can start a day with, and it's the best thing we can end the day with. So if we can, it's gratitude. It keeps you in line with that highest vibration. Gratitude allows you to let things be as they are, even if you don't agree with them. It's okay. Yeah. And you're not going to let it affect you. I would say though that there's probably a few people that are listening in now saying, oh yeah, you might agree with this too. And that is when people learn to let go of having a reaction to things. Yeah. You look like you are insensitive. You look like you don't care. And so you do care very much, but you also care about your own awareness of self. And if we start dissecting how much our brain really wants to have a reaction, really wants to speak our mind, let it be, And so it really just, anytime we can work on being gracious towards each other and expressing gratitude through the good and the bad, I think it helps keep us in a vibration that allows us to just go through the waves and keep moving forward.
Yeah, because if you're not attaching to something being how you want it, I in my past life, I've had several kidney transplants, and there's been periods of time when my body's been incredibly uncomfortable. But every day, I've got a dog, I go outside and I just find things that I'm grateful for. Even if I'm just saying I'm grateful to be outside today, I'm grateful to feel the cold on my skin or the warm on my skin. I find that it's sort of like my sanity, really, because it's usually about an hour and a half of walking. Not when I'm really ill. We do what I can then, but it's always got me through. Just having that ability to go outside, and even if it is a shorter walk than I'd like, because I like my sort of long walks in the mornings, just being outside, whether even I'm very lucky, we've got lots of woodland around us and parks and things, but even when I can't get all the way to those and I'm just walking around the village that I live in and things, I can still feel like, oh, thank goodness, I'm here and I'm going to enjoy this moment as much as I possibly can, so I really, I so get that, of the gratitude and being outside as well. I think it's so important. And for me, the earlier I can get up in the morning, the better. Which is why I'm a little bit, at this time of night, we're about 8 o'clock here, 8:30 in the UK. I'm sort of slightly faded because I've been up since about 4:30.
Oh wow, yeah. So you're like me. You wake up early.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Is there any? Oh, I'd love to. If you got any of your pendulums with you, I'd love for you to show us some of them.
Most of my pendulums I've kind of designed for. When I first got into this, I would buy like every different type of pendulum I could find, and I would test them out, and I would work with them, and I would figure out which ones I got a response doing this kind of work, which ones didn't get a response in this kind of work, right? And then I eventually started getting a color chart, and I started noticing what color these pendulums would swing to, and I started writing it all down in my notes. Yeah. And so I came to a conclusion that certain frequencies would give us leverage in certain areas. Now, being into this stuff, a lot of times we deal with dowsers, and dowsers will tell you can use a pendulum for anything. You can use any pendulum, right? And that's true if you want to just get yes or no questions, or in that case, you don't even need a pendulum. You could use your body.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is we're taking something. How does this work? People are familiar with Reiki. And being able to put your hands on people and channel light from our hands from source into people. So people are familiar with that. Now, with Reiki, you have that light coming from your hands. Now, all of a sudden, you hold an object in the bottom of it, and that light comes down and hits it, and it creates a certain frequency off of it, I guess you could say. Yeah. Certain vibration, certain frequency. And when we apply that, whether it's over a person or on a photo of a person, or sometimes an image of the person in our mind is enough to connect, depending on our level of being able to focus. This is where we can start stimulating change, we can stimulate health, and we can certainly do a lot of clearing. So I know I always get ahead of myself with this, but I can show you a handful that I have. But I do think that there's a topic that we should talk about that I think is going to help a lot of people in this audience today, including you.
Yeah, I'm open and ready.
so this is my Anubis pendulum. This one has a blue frequency, and this is what I use anytime there's any throat chakra issues with people, or anytime I'm doing healings on non-human entities and getting clearings on them.
Okay.
This one is the Furba. And all of these pendulums I have available in brass too, because some people like brass better. But this is the Furba. This is a great frequency. And what I find this one is really good for is interrupting patterns. It's great for if you move into a place and there's just like stagnant energy in this place. Maybe people used to fight or argue a lot in this home and just kind of feels like yucky like that. We can zap it with this. If we're working on cancers or tumors with people, we can zap it with this. If there's extra sensory issues that kids are going, we use this one to go back in time, zap it, and bring healing into the present with. So it's just all about learning how to use the angle. Yeah. This one's probably one of my favorites. This is the classic design of the Nova, but I made a bigger one out of wood called a Supernova. Now this works well for doing any kind of healing on people or the deceased, people in general. Definitely. This is a blue-green frequency.
Okay.
This one is my prayer pendulum. A lot of pendulums nowadays, you can find like the Isis and stuff. It's all white light. This is a white light pendulum. And so I use this not only as great for balancing chakras, but this also is a good follow-up. If I'm doing a clearing on a person, after I do the healing, I follow it up with a prayer with this. If I do a clearing on a house, I follow it up with a prayer on this. And it helps hold that intention and hold that space. But I'd say this one for last. So this one right here, this is the cacao.
Can you tell me
the name again? Cacao.
The cacao. Okay.
Yeah, the cacao. Hekau. Cacao pendulum. Named after the Egyptian word for magic. Wow. This has an infrared frequency. And what I found this was really good at is what we're going to talk about right now, if you're cool. What I've noticed within families, some people believe that we have soul families. Some people believe that we have a group of souls that come together and stick together through incarnations. Okay. One of the things that happens is throughout our lineage, imbalances happen, and these imbalances can be attributed to loss of a pregnancy, whether it be from a miscarriage, whether it be from an abortion, even the stillborn. But what I'm finding more specifically, which is kind of unheard of, is presence of the absorbed twin, presence of a lost twin within the family lineage.
Yeah.
So right now I'm doing a case study on this, and so I was able to stimulate some really cool outcomes with people being healed from this kind of stuff. And so enough that I've opened up a case study because I want more information on it. So I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of topic on this, and when we get to the end of it, we're going to do a little exercise together, and I think it's going to help. Anybody watching this video will be able to feel it if they're open to it. So that's a beautiful thing about it. So the absorbed twin. When I first got into pendulum work, I would try and work on people that had cancers and had different tumors and just different sicknesses, right, that Western medicine couldn't really identify, except for like maybe an autoimmune issue or something, right? And I had this old chart, and it kept swinging to something called negative earth energy. I did not know what this was. I couldn't find a definition of it in any other book. Negative earth energy, whatever it was absolutely present. Then I started finding this, not only in children, but in men and women, but their location was always very similar. Oftentimes I would find a connection with an attachment, some sort of energetic attachment with the thymus chakra, which is also called the upper heart chakra. It's between your heart and your throat. It sits in the middle. It's connected to everything. It's called the seat of your soul, if you haven't heard of it. Thymus chakra, look it up. So connection with there, and then the others, which was down in like the lower three chakras. Right. And so some of the stuff with the root chakra you can attribute to some sort of like sexual abuse. Sometimes that's there. But oftentimes I would find it when this was not the case at all, but it was present. Right. And then people would have these different feelings of maybe being born in the wrong body, or, you know what I mean, having this kind of stuff. I know it's a big topic nowadays and stuff. And so then we see some of the other stuff that happens during with like birth defects, like cerebral palsy and Down syndrome and just some of this other stuff, right? And so there's a lot of stuff that people say it's a genetic thing, but I also believe that it has something to do with lineage. Right. And so when we have the loss of a child in the womb, not only is there an energetic imprint of it, I mean, and this stuff happens before 9 weeks pregnancy all the time. You know what I mean? So it's like it's so soon that you wouldn't even know. You know what I mean? And so what happens is you have 1 in 10 births has more than one egg that's fertilized in the beginning. 1 in 10. Wow. And one usually grows more than the other one, right? Well, sometimes both of them kind of grow, and then one overtakes the other, right? And so what will happen, the energy imprint is kind of there, like you can be seen as emotions. But what happens is whatever physical genetic tissue that's actually in there will sometimes get absorbed by the mother, or it'll get absorbed into the fetus. Yeah. And so what'll happen is it starts creating a host of things. When I started noticing, when I looked at the development of a fetus and what system was made first, the cardiovascular system, the nervous system, the lungs, I started looking at all these different systems, the skeletal system. Mm-hmm. I started finding connections between certain systems being absorbed with certain sicknesses. For instance, what kicked all this off, there was a little boy in my neighborhood that he had been battling leukemia for the past few years. And he's young. He's like younger than probably 8. He's probably like 7, 6, something like that. Great little kid. Anyways, I was talking with his mom, and as I'm talking with her, like I can feel this burning inside of me, like, dude, you gotta talk about this to her. And so I started talking with her about it, and then I started seeing pictures in my mind of this girl's great grandma. This is where I think it originated. Yeah. Grandma had this originally. And so what happens is it can be handed down generation. It can also jump a generation, which is more common than not. Yeah. And so what I found, this boy had leukemia, and every other person that has had some sort of a blood cancer or marrow cancer that I've worked on, they all have one thing in common. There is genetic material from absorbed twin, and they have absorbed some part of the skeletal system. God. And so this is where there's 3 parts to this. Here's the physical part. Yeah. Okay, here's the physical part of it. When we talked earlier about the jinn and the connection with abandonment and fear of abandonment, if you're in the womb with somebody else, right, That's the closest you're going to have to feeling bliss, the closest you're going to have to feeling soulmate with you. You know what I mean? And even though we can't see, we can't hear, we can't necessarily taste because our tongue's not all the way there, one thing I believe is if you and me have that guidance of inner vision, I believe that that's also kind of inherent then.
Yeah.
To the point where they know that they're not alone, they can push, they can feel each other, right?
Yeah.
Well, then one of them passes away. Here's this tremendous loss that it is now alone. Now, before the brain is fully developed, before all the systems are fully developed, the tissue is developed enough that this is where emotions can be stored, is in genetic material. This is where deep down-seated fears of abandonment come from. This is where colicky babies come from. Now, if we can absorb emotion and carry this trauma and we come out birds and we're colicky and we're crying all the time, it's because we've experienced loss, and no one knows that. And no one knows that we've experienced loss already, but our words have so much healing potential. I challenge anybody that has a colicky baby within their home right now, hold that baby, talk to that baby, say, you know what, I know you experienced loss and you weren't alone, but I'm here with you now. I love you. Everything is going to be okay. Tell me how that baby acts over the next week.
Yeah. That's so powerful as well, isn't it?
That's the second part.
Yeah.
So, third part, this is where I think it's kind of a taboo subject for some, but I'm just going to speak on it with love because I think it really is something that it's helpful for people. During my case study, there was someone that I've helped before that has a lot of autoimmune issues, right? They are what I'm looking for in this case study, right?
Yeah.
And this person is also transgender female to male, mid-20s, right? But whole life never felt like a girl, always felt like a boy, wanted to wear boy clothes, do boy things, and da-da-da-da-da. I said, hey, I'm doing this case study right now. Would you be cool if I used you as one of my examples? And cool, no problem. So I looked into this, and as I look into this, I find the exact same thing. And I find that grandma, his mom's mom, had a paternal brother that passed away in the womb, right? That material was handed down a generation. Now, when I was talking about what systems create what imbalances, now I don't want to get anybody thinking that there's a sickness here, but I will say that imbalances create sickness. And so sometimes people say, I can't put my thumb on it, why I feel like a boy, even though I was born a girl.
Yeah.
Guess what system was absorbed?
Was it the sexual organs?
The male reproductive system was producing testosterone in their body. And so I said, okay, I'll leave you with this one. Here's the one that you could think on later. Do you feel like you're in their energy or are they in yours?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
And so this is where autoimmune issues come from, right? Yeah. Because now all of a sudden you have two different sets of DNA that are sharing the same body. Here's this female inheriting of a male DNA. And now all of a sudden the body's attacking itself.
Yeah.
It's because there's another DNA that's in there. Down syndrome, have an extra chromosome, right?
Yeah.
I wonder where the extra chromosome came from.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. I'm diabetic type 1, so I've got an autoimmune disease, basically. It didn't show itself till I was 16. Weirdly, I mean, I feel like sometimes like the fact you've brought up a child with leukemia as well. I also lost a brother to leukemia who was 5 and I was 7 at the time. But I'm thinking this work you're going to do, I feel like, we really need to do this.
Like I said, I wanted to have an introduction, but I knew that's not what this was for. So what I'm doing is giving you guys a tidbit on this. Yeah. But I know that time is of the essence, right? I have a video on YouTube that you can log into and follow along with this process. But here's something I want to share with you.
Tell us what the video is, just so that we can put it up on the screen when we're doing it.
Sure. So here's the third part, and I think this was the part that really knocked me on my butt, and really I was like, whoa, like, what's going on here? We hear stories of this fellow named Jesus that came down, said he was the Son of God, eventually died for our sins to ascend back to the Father. When I read this and I heard about this and I started doing this work, I've probably looked into over 100 families with this angle specifically, and I'm noticing something. And I'm noticing what I think is happening when we have kids that die very young from some sort of sickness, whether it be SIDS, leukemia, cancers, this kind of stuff, right? Here, now, I have no scientific proof of this, but this is what in my heart is telling me is going on. Is you got someone up in your soul family that loves you so much. And they say, hey, you know what? In this family's birthing cycle, the cycle that brings all of their souls into existence one after another in the physical bodies that they use, imbalances start happening in here just over the generations. It happens, right? With everything that happens in life. So you get one brave soul that says, hey, you know what? I'm going to incarnate in there real quick, and I'm going to grab all of that imbalance with me, and I'm going to take it to the grave.
Yeah.
So then that way we can have a healthy birthing family unit again. Yeah. Jesus coming down, dying for all of our sins to ascend to the Father, coming down, grabbing all of our traumas.
Yeah.
And this thing. So we have two ways of doing this.
Yeah.
We can say, hey, I'm going to go incarnate into this family, and I'm going to take care of it the best that I can. Or you'll get the jinn and the other ones that are coming around to help wake you up, because you might be a prayer of who your ancestors have been waiting for.
Yeah.
In order to break the chain of whatever trauma is going on in the family, but also to help out. So, you know, if trauma can be handed down generations, healing can be sent back up them. And so that's kind of like what we're here for right now.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, shattering your reality is essential, because who you are is way more important than you can even possibly understand.
I'm feeling really emotional, Nick. I'm just, everything you're saying is resonating so deeply, you know, and I feel really, like you're talking about things that are so important, like, and you know, some of these things I have come across, but I think it's not well known, is it? And the more we can get it out there, the better. The more people that can wake up to these things as well. So
plant those seeds, man. Plant those seeds. That's really what it comes down to. You know, with this kind of work, what I've really realized is you put it out there and nobody does anything with it, and 20, 30 years later someone comes across it and goes even farther with it. You know what I mean? So at this point it just became a mission to just get this information out there. You know, and what I'll eventually end up doing is making a book out of this whole topic. But it's I wouldn't want to just sit here and talk about it if I haven't found a way to treat it.
Yeah, sure.
That's the fun part, is because we can actually do something about it. And then when people, you know what I mean, you're like, wow, I just helped pull this kid off of his deathbed from cancer. I just gave this woman an extra 5 years in life. You know what I mean? But it's not really me doing this. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of opening up and allowing it to be. But once I started noticing that happening, there is a surrender that has to come with it. You can't do this with just your toes in the water. No. Now, you don't have to say the same thing that I said. But once I started seeing where I could clear people's houses and I could use this divine energy to help heal people, I just dropped all my stuff and I said, okay, whatever I wanted to do in my life, I'm done with. Let thy will be done through me, and I'll do whatever you want me to. And when I said that, dude, I've watched the death of almost everything I ever was a part of happen in front of my eyes. And what's been emerging ever since then, I still couldn't tell you where we're going with it. But I can tell you that it's okay. And I know that we're helping people, and I get a chance to meet people like you. And I get a chance to talk to other people that, you know, might have a similar experience, but have never heard someone else talk about it.
Yeah. It is amazing. It's been really I just feel like this is a video that's going to help so many people. And I hope people watch it again and again as well. And I know we're going to invite you back. But shall we do something with the pendulum now?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on balancing what we just talked about, the absorbed twin. Now, everyone's process is going to be a little bit different, right? Oh, perfect. You got a good one. That's a great one. Everyone's process is a little bit different, but who I found really helpful in this mix is there's going to be a part in this coming up that I call upon the assistance of Master Hilarion.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard of Hilarion, the healer,
Yeah.
before, but in the life before he was Hilarion, he was Paul the Apostle. When I heard about this guy, I kept asking the woman that I was with, who's also very clairvoyant,
Right.
I said, "Who's Paul? Who's this guy, Paul?" Paul, and she's like, "You mean this guy?" She showed me, and it was like a cartoon picture of Master Hilarion, and I was like, "I've never heard of this guy before," And then I ended up going back and learning that it was Paul the Apostle. So he's super helpful with all this. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I have a breath work that we're just gonna practice one time real quick. And so the way that it goes is we're gonna breathe in, we're gonna hold it for a few seconds. And then when we exhale, we want to exhale deep from our diaphragm, so we get this like.
Okay, so from the mouth, yeah.
Yep. Not just a breath, but you want to engage that.
Yeah.
That's your solar plexus,
Yeah.
like your battery, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna breathe in, hold it, exhale, hold it. Okay. And so what we're gonna do right now is we're just gonna take a couple breaths and relax. Just go ahead and take a couple breaths with me. All right. So anytime you hear me go like this, snap my finger, what that means is I want you to do the breath. I want you to breathe in, hold it for a few seconds, exhale, and hold. And those of you that are familiar with Ho'oponopono,
Yeah.
I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the intention in the mind when we're breathing,
Okay.
okay? So you don't have to do it, but if you know it, it helps.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to say universal knowledge. Thank you for this time and allow me to connect with everyone in this video. Do we have permission to connect to their higher self and send them energy? Thank you. Universal knowledge, I want you to scan the physical body, the energy body, and the mental body of everybody watching and listening in on this video. Universal knowledge, I would like to scan the physical body, energy body, and mental body for any astral fragments or any absorbed twins within the physical body. Thank you. Universal knowledge, do we have the presence of any? Yes, we do. Thank you. Universal knowledge, do we have permission to connect to the higher self of all absorbed twins and all astral fragments and send them healing energy at this time? Yes, we do. Thank you. We ask to do so at this time. Universal knowledge, I ask that we remove all pain and cure all astral lesions in all astral fragments and absorbed twins and everybody watching. Energy field, physical body, and mental body from the beginning of time to the present. Here we go. We got a big audience. Let's do another one. Thank you. Universal knowledge, I ask that we depolarize all negative mental stimuli, neutralize all toxic emotional trauma, store in the bank of memory, an energy field, and physical remnants, any astral fragments or absorbed twins in the physical body and family lineage of all watching this video from the beginning of time to this moment. Nice job. We're in rhythm now. Universal knowledge, I ask that we send nourishing, unconditional love energy to the Christ spark of all absorbed twins and all astral fragments. Allow them to feel full, content, and complete once again. All right, here's where we get to have a little fun. I'm going to say, okay, in universal knowledge at this time, do we have permission to call upon the assistance of Master Hilarion at this time? We do. Master Hilarion, I ask that you join us at this time. I usually give him a greeting saying, thank you for joining us at this time. We appreciate your help. Can you assist us in the removal of all astral fragments and all absorbed twins and everybody watching this video's entire family lineage from the beginning of time to the present moment? Thank you. We are grateful for your assistance. Now here's a part that nobody gets to that is really important. Universal knowledge, I ask that we invert the polarity of the electrons in the disincarnate's energy body, astral body, and physical body, unsticking it from the physical body, energy body, and mental body of everybody watching this video from the beginning of time to the present moment. Hope you're feeling warm now, because I am. I'm going to say, okay, universal knowledge at this time, with Hilarian's help, I ask that we remove all astral fragments and all absorbed twins from the family lineages of everybody watching this video, from the physical body of everybody watching this video, and allow it to merge divinely, instantly, and painlessly back with their higher self or core soul. May peace and tranquility follow you for all eternity. Wonderful. And we seal it with gratitude. Universal knowledge, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to connect with everyone. Thank you for the beings of light that you send to us to assist us in this work. We are grateful for the part that we take in this. Thank you for the many wonderful people that enrich our existence on this journey. We are grateful for this day. Thank you. Okay. And you know what we won't be able to do on here later, but if anybody likes this, you can message me directly. The second part that I would do with this is I would do some water imprinting, where you charge a glass of water with intention with the pendulum, because then when I do these readings on people, right, I do this physical part that does the healing from the outside in. When I get to that water and lets it for the person, say clear here, balance here, enforce here, neutralize this, and have them drink it, then I get it from the inside out. And so I say that's the other part of this that actually really makes it happen. So when people have cancers and tumors, this is what makes them dissolve, drink, and pass out of the system naturally. Love it.
So let's clarify. So if people want to contact you, Nick, they can either contact you through Facebook. Should we give your email as well?
Facebook would be probably one of the best ways, Facebook or Instagram, simply because then I can have message history and we can share photos and I know exactly who I'm talking to. I get so many emails from so many different things that, you know, half of it's like junk mail anyway. So I'm happy to take an email. If that's what you got, I'll take an email. I got no problem helping you with that. But very much, you're welcome to contact me on Facebook and Instagram, Pendulum Optometrics. You can look me up too. I'm Nick Salzman. You can message me directly.
Yeah, and Nick also, I've just remembered, does jewelry sort of for people. You can ask, can't you, and you'll intuitively make some jewelry for them.
You know, I grabbed this one because I recently had made it. This is someone I made for somebody.
Oh, wow.
You can see it's got a flower of life and a crystal with a lapis pendant on it. It's like onyx. We got big blue lapis, matte jasper. So basically, what is this for? This is going to be for somebody not only looking for some sort of spiritual protection, but more like embodying truth and learning how to live and speak into their truth. And anytime you get obsidian or jasper and that kind of stuff, not only is it good for grounding, but it's also good to wear to like kind of help you when you're maybe learning about a new subject or you're studying about something or taking on a new job. Jasper's really good. Stuff. So I love getting into all the little metaphysical stuff about rocks. So one of the other things that I like.
Amazing. Nick, I think we're going to wrap it up now, but please do come back and do some more with us because this has been amazing. And let's say thank you to everyone who's watched. Please give us a like and a subscribe. We'll put all Nick's details down the bottom of the video as usual, and yeah, please get in contact with him if you've got any questions or leave us a comment because we'll send Nick the video anyway. But for now, thank you very much, Nick, and
no problem.
We will see
no
you.
Problem. You know, it's been a lot of fun. If I can leave you guys with anything, you can do it.
Yeah.
You really can.
Amen.
You really can. And it's something that it's a lot easier than you think. And, you know, we all learn through process of elimination and everybody's gift is different. You don't have to do what I do. All you have to do is just be okay with being you and letting whatever you have come to the surface that brings you fulfillment. So if I can be your guide, let me know. I'm happy to help you. But at the end of the day, it's all about what you want. And I hope that's peace, and I hope that's happiness and for everyone.
Thank you, Nick. And we will speak again soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Whispers of the pendulum, a journey to go, guiding souls to realms where dreams convene. Kelly and Frog, the masters of